And welcome back, everyone. We're talking to San Diego CEOs and business leaders. And today we've got another amazing guest, executive business coach, author, and COO of San Diego-based Soapy Joes Car Wash. Megan Ragsdale is here. Megan, how are you?
I am great, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm super excited about this. But why don't we help us set it up a little bit here and tell us a little bit more about Soapy Joes, maybe the history and some of the details here in San Diego.
Absolutely. Soapy Joes is a great family-owned brand. And this year, actually, we are celebrating 10 years as being Soapy Joes. Our founders started in this business earlier than 10 years ago, but they came up with this great brand and this great product, and we're the first to market with moving to express wash. And so we're really excited to celebrate 10 years of being in the community of San Diego. We are growing like crazy. This last 2 years has been a huge growth period for us. We've almost doubled in size in just 1 year, and we will be tripling in size probably in the next 2 years or sooner.
Wow, amazing. How many locations, and are they all in the greater San Diego area, let's say?
Yes, absolutely. So we go as far south as San Ysidro and as far north as Fallbrook, and we have everything in between. We just opened up our 15th location in Mission Valley on Friars Road. We opened up Mission Gorge earlier in the year, and just a couple miles down the road, close to Fashion Valley, we opened up Friars location about 2 weeks ago, and we could not be more excited. We are breaking ground on many more sites and are under construction in many more sites. So there will be lots more new locations to come for all of our really valued members and members to be, as we like to call them.
Right. Well, and let's definitely talk more about that growth and those plans coming up here. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about you because I think you have an interesting story, as you are an executive in business and you're also an executive business coach. How did that come about? How did you get into the coaching space?
You know, it really happened during one of those pivotal transitions in life. I have been coaching for decades before I knew this thing was called coaching. And I really just had an inflection point in my own career when I had my first child. And I kind of have had a history of really being called into companies who needed to scale or who needed to turn around a business. And so when I was kind of winding down one engagement and about to give birth to my first child, I realized that I really wanted to take that moment in time to transition into something that I really loved and was really passionate about. And coaching was it. And because my daughter never slept, that allowed me to get my coaching certification at night. And really just kind of wanted to make it official because I really love being the support person behind folks as they're on their own learning journey and really kind of unfolding the career and the future that they want to build. It's really gratifying. So I have just done it ever since. I can't help it. I coach Uber and Lyft drivers when I'm in them. It's
Oh,
just kind
wow.
of in my DNA.
Well, and going through some of your material and on some of the things you coach and teach to business executives, one of the things I found interesting was the mindfulness. And my question to you is, I'm a big believer in mindset. Having the right mindset for whatever it is that you do, whether it be work or home life or sports or whatever. How does that relate to mindfulness? What does that mean exactly?
That's such a good question. So, how I would define mindfulness is really like we've heard this definition before. It's really about in the moment, non judgmentally being able to look at yourself like an observer. So, really just being able to practice presence in the moment presence, which sounds incredibly simple, but is really hard because our brains are naturally wired to be ruminating on things in the past or worrying about things in the future. So mindfulness is really about cultivating the skill. And like any muscle that you would build in a gym, mindfulness is a practice. And the more you practice and the more you build up that muscle, the easier it becomes. So it's really about getting yourself off autopilot and into awareness, present moment awareness. And then mindset is different because it's really about how you approach the world. And there are different factors that work into mindset. So it's really about the type of kind of behavioral traits that you have. It's about your experiences and what lens in which you look at your experiences. So we've all met people, Bob, that have had a lot of things to overcome in their lives, but they have a really solid mindset, a growth mindset, where they look at these unexpected happenings in their life. They've got a lot of resilience around recovering from them, and they look at them as an ability to learn and grow. And then there are people that have more of a fixed mindset, and they think that there is, a certain amount of skill set or competency that you're born with, and it's not really something that you can grow, and you can't create new pathways to learn. And so that's kind of how I look at the difference between the two of them. And mindfulness does help develop more of a growth mindset. And in fact, one of the coolest things about just our brain chemistry is that you can create new neural pathways in your brain just by practicing mindfulness. Also, like learning a new instrument, we are just, that neuroplasticity in your brain is a real thing. And it's exciting to know that no matter what age you are, you can continue to learn and grow.
So how do we create in ourselves an ability to be more aware? For example, I think a lot of people struggle with running the same day over and over again, and they want to make a change, but they find themselves back in that pattern right away. Is there any little things or maybe some big things that we can do to get out of running that same movie over and over again?
Yes, absolutely. And that is kind of a common thing that I would call rumination. It's sort of your brain trying to replay events of the day in your mind because they didn't go the way that you had intended them to, or maybe something upsetting happened and you're trying to interpret the meaning of that thing that happened during the day. So I want to first say it's really normal. And I think one of the hardest, I think one of the hardest things to do when you're stuck in negative loop thinking is to actually stop and really observe that in this moment right now, everything is okay. You're actually creating suffering for yourself by ruminating on things that already occurred, right? So there is a tool that I love to use with people. And I don't know that I could unpack it here, but it's definitely a tool people can look up online. And it's taken from cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's called a thought record. And in really simplistic terms, what really is breakthrough for my coaches and people that I work with is you take this negative thought that you're stuck in a loop about, and you really interpret in that moment how it makes you feel when you think that thought. And then you look for all of the evidence, so facts that actually support that negative thought that you have. And if you start to look at what really is a fact versus a feeling, then you start to see that the evidence for that thought really isn't there. And then where the magic happens is then you find the evidence that does not support that negative loop thought that you've been having. And then you gauge how you feel in your body emotionally after working through the cognitive thought record. And I have found that to be successful 95% of the time with my clients, because it really just gives your brain a way to map it out on paper and really be able to look at it more objectively.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. So many of us get caught up in the I'm going to be happy when I make that $1 million, or when I get that car, or fill in the blank of what it is, when we should be thinking we should be happy now, right? And maybe we'll create some of those things that will will happen and kind of stop the resistance there, maybe.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite sayings, it's from a researcher, Carol Horney. It might be Karen or Carol. Let me check back on that for
It's
you.
okay.
Is really about beware the tyranny of the shoulds. And I think that's a really key statement, because I think that is where we cause undue suffering on ourselves, is when we're telling ourselves that we should be feeling, should be doing, should be thinking a certain way. It's really putting undue suffering on ourselves that really doesn't belong there, because in this moment right now, everything is okay. So it is something that I struggle with too. All my coaches struggle with, and I think just humankind, we struggle with those rumination issues.
As a business coach, coaching executives, I can see this as something that we could talk about forever. But what are some of the other maybe one or two things that you see as a common theme right now with people that are struggling with that work?
Absolutely. I think I will say candidly, I think female leaders at work, especially with a quarter of us leaving the workforce during COVID, those women who are still here and were able to be here are struggling with higher levels of burnout than ever, because we feel like we need to be always on. So I think now, in the middle of, and not even post-pandemic at this point, I see a real need for companies to be able to reach out to the women in their workplaces and really play an active part in making sure that people are feeling supported and that needs are being met. So I think that's one thing. I think on a meta scale, one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking to all of my coachees about, male and female, is really the importance of having courageous conversations and how to actually talk to somebody else in a conversation where there might be some emotionally charged things to talk about. And I think a lot of issues that happen in the workplace can be prevented if you're able to address those conversations in an empathetic and supportive way, kind of at the very beginning. So I think really establishing your communication style as a leader, and remembering that as a leader, your job is to bring out the greatness in other people. And I think as long as that's your intention and you look really deeply, not just at your intention, but at your impact in the conversations that you're having with other people, I think that goes such a long way in just really cultivating your style as a leader, your executive presence, as well as really building a strong foundation of culture for your workforce.
Well, that's a good segue, talking about cultivating and cultivating your business. And let's talk a little bit about Soapy Joes and the car wash operations. I've lived across the country and seen some good car wash businesses and some bad ones. And so if you can take me inside a little bit and talk about how you've kind of cultivated this culture at Soapy Joes.
I really have to credit our CEO for really lighting the fire under our business to really make us a culture-focused organization. And back many years ago, when he and I first met, about a year before that, he had a chance to visit some other companies who were not even in our industry. And these are really admired companies. And he was really struck by how much there was a linkage in the performance of the company and the financials of the company and what was going on with the culture. And so when I first came to Soapy Joes, he said to me, I want to make this a place where people really love to work and they want to stay. So let's look at how we're doing in providing what our people are looking for and how we can continue to make this a great organization. And so after doing, the normal foundational things you do, which is really have a lot of sit downs with employees, do focus groups, do surveys, we really got down to looking at what the values of our CEO are, what the values of the organization are. And how I think about values are those behaviors that people are doing when no one's watching. So really getting our leadership team on board, and we built a brand new leadership team of people from the most amazing places, from the most amazing backgrounds, and brought them all together to build a really dynamic company here. And so we were very intentional and purposeful in our mission statement and our vision statement, in our values, and really making sure that our values are something that we live by. And they're what we link rewards and recognition to. They are part of every single job description. They're part of every single compensation program that we have. They're part of our performance reviews. So we really build that infrastructure into our employee life cycle. And we talk about it a lot. We don't just put it up on a billboard inside the office and then never address it again. In fact, we recently, as a leadership team, reviewed it again and stress tested it and really rated ourselves, in addition to the employee feedback that we asked for and received on how we're doing against what we promised we would deliver. And we really just, questioned what are the areas that we need to focus on and where are we doing well and what is our plan to improve. So I think that continual iterative process and really being able to look at your leadership team and how your organization is operating from an objective and sometimes critical point of view, that really keeps that alive and well for us. And we seek a lot of employee feedback in what we're doing as well. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to build.
Through the pandemic, I've seen in some the guest feedback and just in the business that I'm in, a lot of companies, don't have people coming into the office as much. Some not at all. Others, it's like it used to be. Really, everyone's back, and sometimes I think it has an effect on the culture of the business, and we'll see what effect it has, long term. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's been interesting for us because we are a retail organization where the bulk of our business happens in the community. So the most of our employees are actually on the front lines with our members and our customers, interacting with the public, and we're asking them to be working at a site, and we have a smaller group of people working in home office. We are a company that absolutely focuses on health and on safety as a really critical priority for us, and that didn't go away. In fact, that was enhanced when it came to COVID. We believe that we have hired the right people for the right jobs, and we trust that they are going to do the work that is required of them. And our folks are the DNA of people that work at Soapy Joes is very entrepreneurial. It's highly accountable. These are folks that really don't need to be asked to do things. They just have a real sense of pride and ownership over the work that they do. And we also had quite a lot of women and mothers and dads inside our office as well. And with the schools being in as precarious of a state as they were last year, we're not a believer that butts and seats is an indicator of success. And what we've been able to do performance-wise as a company is have a really strong year. We're not feeling that lack of communication. We're not feeling that lack of engagement. When there was an opportunity to bring us all back together, when it was safe to do so in person, we love to do community events. That's one of the big things that galvanizes our employees together. We definitely took the opportunity to do that safely, but we also trust and have been proven correct that if we give people the space they need to attend to both their personal lives and their professional lives, then people feel, valued and seen and heard. And that's exactly what we want to see from them. So I'm not as concerned as maybe some other leaders might be on people working remotely. I think there has to be some trust extended.
You talked about some of the community things that you do in the community, and with this tremendous growth that you've seen over the past few years, I'm assuming that the community aspects, part of it is really important to you.
It really is. And that was something that was established, long before I came into the company. Again, our founders and our current CEO, Lauren Zatisha, is very big proponent of giving back to the community. And the way we look at community at Soapy Joes, it's one of our values actually, is building community. And that means a lot of different things to us. It means doing things gratis for the community. So we've given over, hundreds of thousands of free washes to folks inside the community. It's about meaningfully joining the communities that we're about to build a new location in. So doing those beach cleanups and partnering with those local chambers and doing things and hiring people from the community. We have a couple of key partners that we do deeper levels of working with. One of them is Support the Enlisted Project, because 25% of our operating team are veterans. So that's a really big partnership for us that we feel great about. So we love to show up, really strongly for the veterans in our communities. And then even during COVID, I was especially proud of what we did as well, because we were able to sit and listen to our customers and members, and did some deep ethnographic studies to really understand what our members were struggling with. And that wound up being spun into a really great giving campaign where we gave things away that were not just for our industry, but were about giving support to the restaurant community and offering our members, free gift certificates to local businesses that were not even our own. And so I'm proud of how we showed up with free washes and other donations for Rady Children's, for our healthcare heroes, for the Emilio Naras Foundation. So that is something that we love to do at Soapy Joes. We are always looking to find a new way to engage with the community, and our members appreciate that. And most of our employees that come to us, quite honestly, Bob, tell us they were attracted to us because of our values and because of our ability and desire to community build. So we know that we're doing a good thing here.
Well, I was going to just ask you what you think are the maybe one or two things that have made the company so successful, and the growth over the past couple of years, and the growth that's happening in the next couple of years. What would those two things be? And you mentioned them right there, but I'll put it out to you anyways.
Well, I think one of them, the number one thing, I think a lot of people say, our people, and they're the reason for our success. And I absolutely mean that when I say that. We take our time in hiring, we take our time in onboarding, we take our time in creating programs that are going to feel supportive to our employees. We build best in class. We just won an award for our learning and development and e-learning classes. We really invest in our people, and we really like to grow them. And so we spend a lot of time really intentionally working with them to build career paths and to build development paths and skills that they can take into the community, whether or not they stay with us. And that's something that we really focus on, because we want to be additive in people's lives when they come and they work with us. And that is what helps us enjoy a lot of great tenure from employees over the last years. And so we just keep finding new opportunities to keep building out that training program and keep building what we like to call a leadership pipeline. That's what we really want to be known for, is that you come to Soapy Joes to become a great leader. And I feel great about the group of leaders we've hired to really help people along that path. So I would say that absolutely is the number one thing. And the second thing, it's hard to just choose one. I think the fact that we hire great people and we focus on providing a great experience. What you had mentioned in the beginning, there can be a really vast difference in our industry of what good looks like in terms of a car wash. And we don't consider ourselves just a car washing company. I don't think any of us would be here if we felt like that's all that we're doing. We take that all the way into, we're a membership company, we're a technology company, and we're one of the few companies that you get to see instant gratification and benefit added to people's lives when they come and wash their cars at our facility. We've surveyed people and our members, so we know that when they leave washing their cars at Soapy Joes, they actually feel better. They feel better about themselves. They feel put together. They feel like they can go out and conquer that date, that first date or that new job interview. And so we try and tap into having fun in that experience with our members, and we get a lot of engagement from them. And I'm sure, you've seen we're super proud of the fact that we won 2 incredibly prestigious awards for doing our Tunnel of Love campaign, which is one year we married people. We married many couples at one of our car washes. And this year, to be COVID friendly, we focused on proposals. And it's just been great to be able to provide a spot of joy in an otherwise really challenging year for everybody.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought about it that much, but every time I come out of the car wash, it does feel really good.
It does.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. It really does.
Okay, so last question. I know that you are, one of the things that you teach also is being decisive and being a good decision maker. And so what do you say when, I know a lot of people struggle with they've got some good opportunities, but they don't know which one to focus on. They don't know what they need to decide on one of them, right, to get it going. But instead they're kind of locked and paralyzed a little bit. So how do you, what do you recommend there?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. One of the things that I love that I know it's, this is something I practice all the time too. I think decision making is a muscle, and I think it requires practice as well. And so we actually focus on that as a training that we do internally. And we have our head of operations do this training, who is a former, 7 combat tour Marine aviator, helicopter pilot. And so he brought in some of the concepts of OODA loop decision making from the Marine Corps. And so what we do internally is really focus on giving people an opportunity to look at the components that they can observe in terms of making a good decision. So you're not going to have all of the data. You're never going to have perfect data to make a decision. But what are the things that you can orientate yourself to in the environment, and what can you observe? And then what we're trying to teach people is a bad decision is usually better than no decision. In fact, it's always better than no decision. So inaction is also a decision. And that is not something we are trying to instill in our folks. We're trying to allow them to feel like they have some room to break some china, because even if you make a poor decision, it's an excellent opportunity for growth and learning. None of us get better at what we do because we were successful every time. We learn best from those moments where we kind of flubbed it and fell on our face a little bit. And so we make it a safe environment for making mistakes. And we just try and instill in folks that the output from that decision, even if it was bad, does not mean that the decision itself was bad, because there are things like luck or bad luck, that come into play. And Annie Duke, the famous poker player, does a lot on this topic that I really love. And it's just, there are things that you cannot, you can't foresee. And so even if the outcome was bad, go back and look at what you knew at the beginning of the decision and determine whether it was just simply bad luck, but the quality of your decision was still good. So I think it's just, don't get too stuck in being outcome focused on whether it's going to be successful or fail, but more about practicing the art of making decisions, because the better you get at making the smaller decisions, the easier it is for you to start taking on more and more complex decision making. And that's kind of how we do it. And that's how I practice it personally as well.
Great. Megan, thank you so much for being here today. I could talk about this for another 30 minutes for sure.
Me too, Bob.
Really appreciate it. Continued success. And
thank you.
Look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me, Bob.
Okay. Thanks so much.